Title: Roanoke, the Mystery of the Vanished Village. Chapter 1: A New Beginning. Promise of uncharted territories has always captivated the human spirit. The late 16th century was no different. New World, a vast expanse of land waiting to be explored, was the latest attraction. Across the Atlantic lay a land filled with promise and potential, where England hoped to establish a permanent settlement. A beacon of English influence in a world dominated by the Spanish. Sir Walter Raleigh, a dashing English explorer with ambitions as grand as the oceans he sailed, had been granted the right by Queen Elizabeth to claim and colonize any remote, heathen and barbarous lands not already claimed by other Christian nations. This was a golden opportunity, and Raleigh, with fire in his eyes and hope in his heart, set his sights on the eastern coast of what we now know as the United States. Choosing a team of ambitious settlers, Raleigh prepared for the voyage to the New World. Among these brave souls was John White, an artist and friend of Raleigh's, who would play a pivotal role in the events to follow. After a few unsuccessful attempts, in 1587, Raleigh and his team decided on Roanoke Island, situated off the coast of present-day North Carolina, as their settlement site. The island seemed perfect, isolated from potential threats, fertile for cultivation, and surrounded by deep waters, ideal for anchorage. Little did they know that this hopeful beginning would lead to one of history's most baffling mysteries. Chapter 2: The First Hurdles. Life in the New World was far from the utopian dream the settlers had imagined. While the land was lush and the waters abundant, challenges lurked at every corner. They needed to build shelters, find food, and most crucially, establish relations with the native inhabitants. Roanoke Island was home to the Native American tribes of the Algonquian-speaking Carolina Algonquian people. Initially, relations between the English settlers and the indigenous people were amicable. They traded goods, shared stories, and the settlers even recorded observing the natives' way of life. John White, with his artist's eye, made watercolor paintings of the indigenous people, their villages, and the local flora and fauna. These would later prove to be invaluable records of the native culture. However, as time passed, the delicate balance of trust began to shift. Some of the tribes' leaders grew wary of the settlers' intentions, and skirmishes broke out. Food stocks began to dwindle as the settlers, unfamiliar with the land, struggled to cultivate crops. To make matters worse, a harsh winter was approaching. Realizing they were ill-equipped, the settlers decided they needed more supplies from England. Their very survival depended on it. And so, a plan was hatched. John White, given his close ties with Raleigh and his understanding of the colony's needs, would travel back to England, gather the necessary supplies, and return to Roanoke. As White prepared for his journey, the settlers, including his daughter Eleanor Dare, who had recently given birth to Virginia, Dare, the first English child born in the Americas, watched with bated breath. White made a solemn promise. He would return with the supplies as swiftly as possible. Little did they know, this would be the last time many of them would set eyes on each other. Chapter 3: An Unexpected Delay. Back in England, John White was met with a mix of astonishment and admiration. Stories of the New World, of encounters with natives, of the bounteous, yet alien land, and of the birth of Virginia Dare captured the imagination of many. But White had no time for storytelling. His primary concern was to gather supplies and return to Roanoke. However, England was in turmoil. The Spanish Armada was preparing to attack, and every available ship was conscripted for defense. White's pleas to prioritize a relief mission to Roanoke fell on deaf ears. Every passing day filled him with dread, images of starving settlers, including his own family, haunting his nights. Finally, in 1588, the English fleet defeated the Spanish Armada, a victory that filled the nation with pride and relief. But for White, the celebration was bittersweet. The immediate threat was over, but 3 long years had passed since he left Roanoke. Chapter 4: The Return to Silence. With the immediate threat from Spain quelled, John White wasted no time. Securing a ship and the much-needed supplies, he sailed back to the New World, his heart heavy with anticipation. But nothing could prepare him for what awaited. As Roanoke Island appeared on the horizon, White looked eagerly for signs of life, for the bustling colony he'd left behind. But as they anchored and rowed to shore, an eerie silence enveloped them. The colony was deserted. Houses were dismantled methodically, not destroyed in haste. There were no signs of a struggle or conflict. Most perplexing was the absence of bodies or graves, suggesting that the settlers hadn't faced a deadly attack. On one of the palisades, White found a single word carved, croton. There were no distress symbols, which the settlers had previously agreed to display if they faced any danger and had to evacuate. White was devastated but also puzzled. Croton was the name of a nearby island, known today as Hatteras Island, and home to a friendly Native American tribe. Did the settlers move there? Were they forced to? With worsening weather and a dwindling crew, White's hope of solving the mystery was dashed as they were forced to return to England. The Roanoke colony and its settlers, including the first English child born in the New World, had vanished without a trace. Chapter 5 Croton's Tale. Croton Island, now known as Hatteras Island, was inhabited by a tribe who had lived there for generations. Their lives revolved around the ebb and flow of the seasons, bounties of the sea, and the tales told around roaring fires. One evening, as the sun cast long shadows over the island, the tribe's eldest storyteller, Nahini, began to narrate a tale that no one had heard before. Children gathered around, their eyes wide with anticipation, while adults exchanged puzzled glances. Many seasons ago, Nahini began, strange men, women and children, pale as the sand, arrived in our land. They came on large floating islands with white wings. He described how the Roanoke settlers, facing food shortages and an unforgiving land, had sought the help of the Crotons. Tribe had initially been wary, but had taken pity on the strangers, especially the children, and had welcomed them. They learned our ways, our songs, and our language. In return, they showed us objects of wonder, shiny metals, fabrics smoother than any we had felt, and tools that made work easier. But as the seasons changed, so did the dynamics between the settlers and the natives. Some settlers longed for their old world, while others desired to merge their lives with the tribe. Tensions grew, with differences in customs and disputes over resources. Chapter 6 Love Beyond Boundaries. In the midst of these trying times, a bond formed between Eleanor, a settler and daughter of John White, and Dakota, a young warrior of the Croton tribe. Their love was a secret whispered between the trees, hidden from the prying eyes of both their communities. One day, while the couple met in their secret spot, a grove sacred to the Crotons, they were discovered by members from both sides. Confrontation turned violent, with swords and arrows drawn. In the chows, Dakota was gravely injured, protecting Eleanor. The incident became the catalyst for a decision. The majority of settlers, fearing retaliation and also feeling out of place, decided to leave Croton. A few, including Eleanor, chose to stay, embracing their new life and family. Chapter 7 Merging of Two Worlds. As the sun rose the next day, the settlers, who had chosen to stay, began to integrate more deeply with the Croton tribe. They participated in ceremonies, hunts, and the daily activities of the tribe. In return, they shared their knowledge of farming, construction, and other skills they had brought from England. Eleanor, nursing Dakota back to health, became a bridge between the two cultures. Their child, a symbol of their united worlds, was raised with stories from both heritages. However, the settlers who had left faced a grim fate. Unprepared and lacking the necessary skills to survive in the wild, many perished. The few who survived were believed to have been assimilated into other native tribes, or met other unforeseen ends. Chapter 8 The Return and Revelation. Years later, when John White and his crew landed on Roanoke, they found no trace of the settlers because there was none to be found there. The word Croton was a message not of distress, but of direction. It was meant to guide any searcher to the tribe and their integrated family. Unfortunately, adverse weather conditions and a myriad of other challenges prevented White from exploring further and uncovering the truth behind the mystery. The settler's story with the Crotons remained untold for years, becoming stuff of legends and whispers until one fateful day when an old diary, believed to be Eleanor's, was discovered. It detailed her life, her love for Dakota, and the decisions the settlers made. Conclusion Lessons from Roanoke. The tale of Roanoke serves as a poignant reminder of the complexities of human nature, challenges of coexistence, and the boundless potential of love to bridge divides. In a world where differences often pull us apart, stories like these beckon us to find common ground, to understand, and to build together. The end. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy the next piece. Please give a like and subscribe. Thank you.